Conservative UK government helped fund Kill the Gays Uganda lawbackers. According to a report recently released, the UK government has been helping to fund the work of a virulently, bad homophobic religious organization in Uganda, whose leaders have backed a proposed law that would make identifying as gay a criminal offense. Analyzing official data given to the International Aid Transparency Initiative, IATI, the report by the Institute for Journalism and Social Change found a staggering number of connections between anti-LGBTQ+ organizations in Uganda and international aid donors, including the UK. According to IATI submissions, the Inter-Religious Council of Uganda, an interfaith body, has been a direct recipient of UK aid money in its capacity as implementing partner of a program that aims to deliver the Foreign Office's ambition for an open society in Uganda. In February, members of the IRCU, including the Church of Uganda and several evangelical churches, signed a statement expressing great concern over the growing spread of homosexuality in Uganda and the effect of the LGBTQ agenda on well-being of children. 2 weeks later, the Anti-Homosexuality Bill 2023 was introduced into Parliament to broaden the country's anti-gay legislation. And last month, it was passed by the Ugandan Parliament with 387 out of 389 MPs voting in favor. The Foreign Office has confirmed it provided funding to the IRCU from 2021 until earlier this year. And I'm sorry I cut you off before.
You're fine.
Okay.
This was more important.
Okay. Anybody have any thoughts on this?
Well, you know, it sounds very bad, and it is. But the thing is, the UK Parliament, as bad as the Conservative Party is right now, they didn't say, okay, let's give, £2 million to anti-gay causes. A lot of times things have a great name, like, Parental Rights and Education Protection Act, which we know is a terrible thing. Mm-hmm. So things have a name. And this group could do good things. So, the British Foreign Office may have seen, they have opened 100 wells across Uganda to help bring, and that's how this type of money slips into bad places. So before we really condemn the people who gave the money, let's look at the process. And God bless the groups that are investigating, because that's what the journalists are supposed to do. The media looks in and says, oh, I know this may have seemed like a good idea, but guess what? It's anti-gay.
Right.
So that's part of what we do. And I think this is really the process working about as well as it's going to work.
And I agree with you. Branding them as evil is not the right way to go, because we don't know the details, and they didn't probably know the details when they were funding it. And it says that they stopped funding it in, was it last year sometime? Mm-hmm. Mid-year.
Earlier this year.
Earlier this year, 2023. So, yeah.
I hear what you guys are saying about this, and I understand, the wide reach of these different organizations and the many different projects and many different hats that they wear. But I think I'm just going to call a spade and call it BS, okay? Mm-hmm. Because we're responsible. Like, I have a business, right?
Right.
And if anyone in my organization says something to someone, they are a direct representation of us, right. Of me, and of my business, and of my brand. These CEOs, what are they doing? I know they're making a lot of money. We hear about that in the news all the time. So what is it that they're monitoring? What are they watching? What are they... I know they're looking at the reports at the end. I know the CFO is definitely looking at the financial reports at the end. So it might be easy to say, oh, they do a lot of good, and like the good versus the evil that they're responsible for. But I just personally, I don't want to let anyone off the hook these days.
Right. Well, I'm not saying that they should.
When they're vetting, who to fund, I think if their whole idea behind giving the money was to create a more open kind of society, I forget the exact words they were used, like, then there should be one of the questions, like, what do you stand for, right? Should be one of the questions when you're asking for funding. And what are some of the things that you're against? And, hopefully they respond truthfully, right? That's one of the things. But I think there needs to be a little bit more. And then once they respond, you look to see what in the past have they done? What have they sponsored in the past? And then, but I think it goes, with the money has to follow the research. Like before the money is given, there has to be research into the organization that's being given.
But there's also the point that my problem with this story is that Uganda has a long history of being anti-gay, to the point that one of the reasons they are so hatefully anti-gay is because of a lot of American evangelicals going over there, because they're realizing that their grasp here in the States is becoming smaller and smaller, so they go over to Uganda where they can dominate. The British government knows the teams. They know who they're playing with and who represents what. I think this has been a huge screw up for the situation for the British team. I think what's going to be important is to see what actions they take moving forward and how they're going to impact it so that it is not 387 versus 2 in the next parliamentary vote.
Right.
That's what's going to be important, because people are dying over there, because that's how hateful this is becoming, and it disappoints me to know that a government with such reach and such resources could mistakenly do this, even if it was a broad pool of money that was somehow trickled down to the wrong aspect of the equation.
Right. You know, I'd rather watch the Book of Mormon. And they talk about Uganda in that show and stuff. It is horrific what's happening, and we're seeing this everywhere. I mean, sadly, we're seeing it in our own backyard.
Right.
In ways I could never have imagined 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, or when I moved here 40 years ago. This is scary, and it's scary across the country that we're seeing more and more of these right-wing folks that are stepping in and redirecting good and turning it to evil. And how do we turn that back around? How do we make the world a better place? How do we give people more equality? I mean, there's so many things that are layered into this. But like you said, John, the intention might not have been a bad intention. Maybe it was meant to go for clean water, but somehow they got some of that money. And then, of course, what are they going to do? They're going to highlight that. And I agree with you. Like, no one should be let off the hook. But let's see what the British government does at this point,
but
and how they stand up.
That's what's going to be important moving forward, because now that this has become public, and now that they're investigating how did this happen and who did what and said what, because we were told it was an apple and now it's an orange, we need to know where the dots misconnected. And I think it's going to be important to see, especially because the British population is so very pro-LGBT, or growing to be pro-LGBT, despite their conservative politics.
Right.
Well, before we can fix religious domination across the world, we need to fix it at home.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.